I am going to start with the stunning revelations in the Arctic frost case today. And you're going to have to bear with me on this because I actually want to show documents on the screen as we go through the revelations from the Senate Judiciary Committee and Chuck Grassley that just happened hours ago. I think what we got today were historic documents. I think this is a landmark moment, and I think it demands a new church committee era, if not a new church committee itself. So let's start actually on that note. On April 13th, 2022, you may remember this. Let me put it up on the screen, in fact. This is a document from the FBI. This is an email from someone at the FBI, a lawyer at the FBI, that said, case is open. Headline, Arctic frost open. So that's April 13th, 2022. Now, in November of that year, just months later, literally the same week that Donald Trump announced he would run again for president of the United States, then Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed Jack Smith to take over the Biden Department of Justice's investigation into Trump's retention of classified documents. And, this is key, January 6th. What we learned today is stunning. It might not be surprising, but it's stunning and it's historic. The breadth of Arctic frost blows the Lois Lerner scandal out of the water. And I really mean that. This is Lois Lerner on steroids. Lois Lerner's politicized IRS on steroids. Today, Grassley and the Senate Judiciary Committee, as I mentioned earlier, released this massive tranche of documents containing subpoenas from Smith to, here are the numbers, 163 businesses and 34 individuals for three things: testimony, communications, and records related to, here's another number, a big number, another big number, 430 Republican individuals and entities, according to Grassley. These documents are sourced actually to a whistleblower. That is another important part of this. They were not given to Grassley by the FBI, and you could practically hear at a press conference that the Senate Judiciary held earlier today, you could practically hear the senators pleading in their voices with Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi to get going on releasing more and more information. And that's important. Senator Johnson actually at this press conference said he believed that both of those departments, FBI and more broadly the Department of Justice, had been compromised from the inside by people who are seeking to undermine the right. So let's listen to how Chuck Grassley described these whistleblower documents and the plot, essentially, that they reveal with S1 here.
I've recently been informed by Verizon that at least 11 members with Verizon accounts were affected. That includes a hard line for Senator Cruz's office and a staffer's cell phone for former Senator Loeffler. AT&T informed me they challenged the legal basis for Jack Smith's efforts, and Smith backed down.
Okay. A hard line to Senator Ted Cruz's office. Jack Smith wanted the records for an office line at Senator Ted Cruz, Republican senator's office. So this is also nonprofits, activist groups. So think of like a Turning Point USA and close allies. Think of Stephen Miller. Think of Russ Vought. Before they were in the second administration, that's really key too. So it's subpoenas. Get this. I'm just going to put this up on the screen, actually. This is the document that compiles a summary of the subpoenas. So if you're not watching that, what I'm going through is essentially an Excel spreadsheet that's 21 pages long, at least on my PDF format. It's 197 subpoenas. And you can see going through, this is again, nonprofits like the Conservative Partnership Institute, they are looking for their bank records. They're subpoenaing places like Bank of America. They are subpoenaing the payroll. They subpoenaed ADP for the payroll information of nonprofits. They subpoenaed, think about this, their contacts with the media. They subpoenaed a Republican-aligned or Trump-aligned consulting firm, Jameson Partners, for its contact with CBS, Fox News, Sinclair. I know a lot of the people in the groups involved in this lot of them are just normal human beings who are here in DC to pursue policies as Christian conservatives and would not hurt a fly. But more broadly, this is about the people around the country who support them that were targeted by this special counsel, who you'll remember was appointed actually to by Merrick Garland to avoid looking like there was a conflict of interest in the investigation. And this is where Republican senators are going to want a whole lot more information. And in fact, they called for it already. And I'm just actually going to go ahead and put the subpoenas up on the screen because, when you look at these, when you look at the documents, which I would encourage everybody to go to the Senate Judiciary website. I know that's probably not on your homepage, but if you go to the website and look through these documents, you can see the subpoenas themselves. And it just, again, I'm looking at a 1,730-page document right now of the 197 subpoenas that Grassley obtained via this whistleblower, and the breadth of them is incredible. Incredible. Again, I have a lot of friends and know a lot of groups that are wrapped up in this, so I'm not going to be an objective and dispassionate source here, but I've covered the FBI and I have never seen anything like this. Senator Cruz mentioned, and Senator Grassley mentioned just there, that AT&T rejected Jack Smith's subpoena because their lawyer told them it was obviously protected speech by the speech and debate clause, and that is very obviously the case. You may not even like Ted Cruz, and you should understand this is protected speech that was subpoenaed, protected activity that was subpoenaed by Jack Smith, who was appointed by a Democratic attorney general. They asked for geolocation data. Geolocation data. Verizon, according to Senator Marsha Blackburn, actually did turn over the investigation, or the subpoena, the materials requested by the subpoena. So there was not agreement between AT&T and Verizon. And here's a bigger point as well. Many people do take as gospel the idea that there was a, quote, fake electors scheme. That is not true. That has been misrepresented by the media, and the idea that it warranted a criminal investigation, let alone one of this scale and scope, is ridiculous. And I didn't agree with it, by the way, at the time, and I don't agree with it now. But what senators who were surveilled were debating was obviously protected activity. And you should want it to be protected activity if you ever think that it needs to be protected activity, which you may at some point. And even if it was not protected, the scope of the subpoenas released today is damning and completely intolerable. What actually happened was similar to 1960 in Hawaii. And if you haven't read Margot Cleveland on this, she has a great piece over at The Federalist. And I think it was from a couple of years ago at this point. But here's actually a document Margot pointed to in that piece. This is in the congressional record. This is from Patsy Mink of Hawaii on December 13th, 2000. Using the 1960 Hawaii precedent, which would be called, quote, fake electors today, that is in the Kennedy-Nixon election, essentially what happened was similar to what happened in 1960 in Hawaii, what happened in 2020. So a pending lawsuit charged that Georgia had certified votes that were improperly cast. So GOP electors met to cast their votes for Trump to keep the legal battle viable. There was chatter, as you see in this Mink congressional record document, from Democrats about doing something similar with Florida in Bush v. Gore. Again, I didn't agree with it. Didn't agree with it then, don't agree with it now. And I'm saying all of this as someone about that, someone who thinks that about all of this, somebody who thinks that one of Trump's gravest political errors was talking the way that he did after the 2020 election. And listen, Time Magazine obviously itself reported on the objective rigging effort. My former boss and my boss at the time, Molly Hemingway, had an exhaustive book called Rigged on all of that. But, I didn't like then, I don't like now, the flirtation with voting machines, speculation, and all of that stuff. And I thought all of that was an error. Even so, this was not criminal. It was not criminal. And it certainly did not warrant subpoenas on, as Grassley put it, nearly the entire Republican political apparatus. So Trump-aligned consultants, people like Andrew Surabian and their contacts in the press, conservative nonprofits that probed election integrity, Trump advisors like Stephen Miller, Russ Vought, and their groups. Documents released from the FBI to Jim Jordan yesterday. Check this one out. I'm going to put it up on the screen in case you haven't seen it yet. This is insane. This is insane. This is from Monday, September 12th, 2022. It is an email from one FBI email address to another. Lots of redactions on it, by the way. This was turned over from the FBI to Jim Jordan. Would love to see it without so many redactions. But basically, it's accusing Ed Corrigan of the Conservative Partnership Institute, who is a great person. They're saying he's pro-Putin and anti-Biden. Why would the FBI care if he's anti-Biden? That's a great question. They say a colleague somewhere consider what Corrigan is doing, quote, treason. They believe that Corrigan is building up infrastructure to train people for the Civil War. Again, this is blue anon, low IQ bullshit with the force of the FBI behind it. It's completely insane. And what this suggests is that someone on the right was informing on Ed Corrigan and others at the FBI's encouragement. You see at the bottom here, blank thinks that blank would be willing to talk to the FBI. This is Hoover-style disruption of protected political activity. That's what it is. Seeking to undermine the right by bankrupting it with lawsuits. So the punishment is the process. Fomenting division with informants and then fishing for crimes. So if you're upset about things like the NSPM-7 and planned Trump surveillance of left-wing groups, you should be upset about this because the scope is almost unfathomable apart from the fever dreams of Democratic lawyers. As with Russia collusion, media double standards that downplay, ignore, or lie about the story are just going to radicalize the right. They are. This is historic. It's the defining scandal of the Biden presidency, I should say, and it's worse than the Biden age cover-up. It might be connected with the Biden age cover-up that the man who ran on restoring civility and norms and decency ended up with the Lois Lerner scandal on steroids in his own lap. Was he making the calls? I don't know. That's what senators are going to call a lot of witnesses to testify about as long as they control the upper chamber. So we need more information about this. We need redactions removed. And we need a new church committee, frankly. We need a new church committee. So on that note, it left me almost speechless as I was scrolling these documents today. It's just completely insane. Completely crazy stuff. And to not see this blanketed all over the media, even though, again, CBS contacts with political consultants, likely sources, phone records were targeted in this probe. Like I said, it's Hoover-esque. So for this, though, I'm going to look something up here on the media. I am going to use my Up phone by Unplugged. I'm going to do it for secure search segment. So it's a way to search for whatever you need the answer to while knowing your personal information stays personal and private with no data mining and hidden trackers. You can understand why for a journalist who is reading the stories here about Jack Smith subpoenaing media contacts with consultants, like I said earlier, sources, that might be a little bit interesting. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is look to see if the FBI has released any information about this Arctic frost revelation yet. Okay. What has the FBI said? I definitely prefer to be using secure search when I'm looking on the FBI's website. Again, pretty understandable. Pretty understandable. Okay, so there's nothing on FBI.gov about it yet, but there is FBI documents that were released, as I mentioned, the Ed Corrigan ones from a couple of days ago. So that's really helpful to know because I would want to, in the segment, include a statement from the FBI if they had put out a press release. So this has been Secure Search using my Up phone by Unplugged. So if you're ready to take back your digital privacy, even if you're not a journalist, you genuinely never know how this stuff is going to be used. It just builds up and up over time and creates an even more detailed picture of who you are. So visit unplugged.com/Emily and get $25 off a phone case with a purchase of a phone. Learn more and order your Up phone today. That's unplugged.com/Emily. Great timing for that ad, by the way. Right after a segment about wildly improper FBI surveillance of people's phones and their phone records.